Hey, it's Benji Cole, son of Al Cole from CBS Radio, welcoming you to another edition of People of Distinction. The talk that gives an in-depth view of some of the most dynamic, intelligent, and successful people on the planet. Run to our website, peopleofdistinction.org for more info, or you can email me directly at benji@alcoleenterprises.com. And on the line with us today, we have Carol Wilson Mack. We'll be discussing her book, Fan Loyalty, available at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, or if you guys want to get everything that Carol has put together for us and really get the full experience, do yourself a favor. Don't stop at Amazon or Barnes & Noble. Go directly to her personal websites, okay? Now, I'm going to give you two just to make sure that you got them both, okay? That's CarolWilsonAccomplished.com, and the other one is CWMackBooks.com. Through both of those websites, not only will you be able to find each one of her titles that she's written, but you'll also be able to find more information on Carol herself, as well as be able to purchase the books directly from her site. So one more time, that's CarolWilsonAccomplished.com and CWMackBooks.com. Carol was brought to People of Distinction today by some of the best movers in the business. Author Reputation Press Publishing. If you have a book that you'd like moved, well, move it through Author Reputation Press. You can find them at authorreputationpress.com. So without further ado, Carol, first and foremost, thank you so much for being a guest with us today on People of Distinction. How are you?
Thank you for having me. How are you?
I am doing very, very well. Thank you for asking. And listen, let's jump right in. Let's not keep our listening audience waiting any longer. Fan Loyalty. Tell us a little bit about your book.
Okay. When I was very young, I heard this gentleman sing a song on the radio. And I guess I need to tell you that in my youth, I was very shy, very withdrawn, until I heard this man sing. And I said, I'm going to meet him. You have to understand that I was from a very strict, disciplined father. And he asked me, what do you mean you're going to meet him? I don't even know what made me say it. I was drawn to his voice. Mm-hmm. I didn't know his name, and I waited by the radio after he sang. And that moment, the disc jockey didn't announce his name. And I was like, why didn't they announce his name? So I became just obsessed with wanting to hear this man sing again. And still in high school, running home every day just to listen to the radio. Finally, I did find out who he was. And I did get to meet him. Fan Loyalty just shares that journey. And I used the tribute to the gentleman because people know who he is. So I use him as an example, and I attributed the book to him. And he's been dead for a long time now, and we're still listening to his music. So it just takes us on the journey from the day that I said those words, and it shows you the steps that I took. But I got to where I wanted to be, to meet the gentleman who was singing that song. And of course, that gentleman was Brook Benton, and the year was 1959, and we're still listening to Brook Benton. And it just happened just today, I learned that he's going to be inducted into the Hall of Fame, Rhythm and Blues. We didn't know why they didn't have him in any hall, because he sang everything. Gospel, rhythm, blues, country, everything. But we wrote letters. We have a Facebook account just for his fans. So we're always writing and listening to his music and sharing music. And I'm so glad I wrote it, because I was connected to someone in Austria who shared some music by Brook Benton that was never published in the States. So it was a wonderful journey, and it's still going on.
You know, it makes perfect sense now when we talk about fan loyalty. I mean, I don't know if there's ever been a fan as loyal as you, Carol. That is quite the journey and quite the story. So fantastic.
Yes. I am a loyal fan. I am. Yeah, it was a wonderful journey. And you know what? I thought that once it was written, that would be the end. But that opened up a whole lot of people contacted me in reference to the book, and I gained so much more. So I'm absolutely glad I did it, because it was so strange when I first started thinking about the possibility of doing it, and I said, who would want to read this? Nobody wants to read that. And the very night that I did that, I went to sleep and I dreamed. I said, I wouldn't even know what to title the chapters. What would I call them? I kept saying, I love the title, but what will I call the chapters? That night, I the book said, and in my dream, it seems like he said to me, why don't you name the chapters after my song? So you see the chapters are named for his songs. Each one of the chapters represents one of his songs, and he had so many more than we know about in the States, because there's so many that was published in other places and not in America. But now I'm getting that music from people that's far away, but it was fan loyalty that connected me to these people.
Beautiful. What a fantastic narration. Thank you so much for that, Carol. Listen, talk to our listening audience about inspiration. What inspired you to embark upon a creative journey of this magnitude and become a writer?
Well, from elementary school, I started out writing scripts, because every place and every place that I've always been involved with need a program. From elementary school, I wrote scripts to be performed on stage. I also like to do plays on stage. I've done a production of Sly Fox, a comedy in New York, on stage, and I was going to repeat that production again in Memphis, Tennessee, but because of the virus, we weren't able to do it. Mm-hmm. But I love theater, and in order to do theater and those kinds of things, you read a lot and you visit the theater, and all of those things, the creative process has always been with me. From elementary school, I used to write shows and programs for our school. Whatever holiday was coming up, I was the one who made the program. And I became a registered nurse later in my life, and even the hospitals and the places that I worked, they also needed programs. So I have always written scripts, basically. So I just started to write books, because these ideas come to me, and I think, maybe somebody would like to read this. So that's how I got started. Always after reading I Know Why the Caged Bird Sing, that was the book that really said, you know what, I think I could do this too.
Absolutely. You know, getting back to fan loyalty, we know what inspired you to write it. We know why this book has so much significance to you and to your life. But why do you feel that this was a book that needed to be written? Right? And it wasn't just something that you wanted to put out for those around you, but you really wanted to share with the public as well.
Because you know what? People, I think we sometimes just don't realize, you know, when you say something, there's a scripture that says death and life is in the power of the tongue. That's a heavy scripture. You can speak life into your life, or you can speak death into your life. So wouldn't we want to speak life into our lives? That's what people... I remember sitting at a lunch counter with a woman, and she said, I'm going to kill my husband. And I said, oh, because of the way I feel about that, I said, don't say that. And she said, you don't know me like that. You know I'm not going to kill him. I said, but you're saying that. You're saying that. Don't say those kind of things. Say uplifting things, say things that's going to add life to the person that you're interacting with and add to your own life. Just positive things.
Absolutely. And what a
We
great...
want to share positive, not negative.
What a great message, really, to showcase. And really, I think that that's something that is not nearly discussed as often as it should be. So thank you so much for taking the time to really elaborate on that. Guys, again, here on the line with Carol Wilson Mack. We just finished discussing her book, Fan Loyalty, available at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, but also at her two websites, carolwilsonaccomplished.com and also cwmackbooks.com. But that's not all, okay? Carol has put forth a lot of work. Just recently released another book called Patchwork, Conversations Between Generations. Carol, talk to us a little bit about that second book, please.
Oh, the second book, I felt like there was a disconnect or a gap between generations. I felt like we're missing something, although I think we're going to be forced to listen to the youth because they have to teach us the technology. But we, the women, which were my grandmothers who inspired patchwork, they spent a lot of time talking with the younger women, and they used the platform of making quilts. And during those meetings, each of the families that were represented in that group each family had a different challenge, and each of the women would come to the group and talk about her challenges, and the group would pray with her or support her in whatever way that she needed. They were also making bed coverings for their families because at that time, it's during the period of 1939 to 1959. So it talks about the disruption between the races. A lot of that is not a lot, but quite enough. Mm-hmm. Each of the women were having challenges, and they talked about those things, and the group tried to support them in whatever way they could. So they were making bed coverings for their families. That was the physical patchwork, but they were also mending whatever they could in terms of support and prayer for the woman who quilt was being made. They were also mending the family. She was venting. If nothing else, she was able to vent with that group. So that's what we want to encourage. And I mentioned the fact that the elders should not feel that they have, all the knowledge. We have to be open because during that time, I was a child threading needles and doing things for these women, but I know the young people didn't have much to say because my grandmother used to say children should be seen and not heard, so we couldn't say much. But now we have to talk to the young people and share what we know with them. We want to say, every generation has to build. We don't want to always be building foundations. We want to build on that foundation. And that's what Patchwork wants to do. Remind us that we need to talk to each other. And that's what I think is missing. I think a lot is missing in that, the elders and the youth.
What a fantastic message, really, with that one as well. And, it kind of reminds me of the old adage and the old quote, and I'm probably going to butcher it, but it's something akin to those who fail to acknowledge the past are doomed to repeat it, right? Or something along those lines. And I think that is such a profound message because, listen, at the end of the day, as you stated, with each generation, we don't want to just build a new foundation, right? The goal is to be able to build off of the foundation that's already been laid. And then we continue to build on that, right? And there's so much wisdom to be gained from previous generations that it really starts with those discussions. Now, getting back to fan loyalty, one last question that I really would love to know as we tie up this interview is, what would you say was a highlight for you in writing that book? Or if not a highlight, maybe something that surprised you that you weren't expecting prior to embarking on that journey?
That I could really do it. That I was able to complete it, because writing is not an easy thing to do. And I wrote so much, I thought the book was huge. But, you scratch out, but I enjoyed the experience, and I think I learned from it, and it made me want to keep doing it. To share thoughts, not that it's nothing in there that people don't already know. But there's always somebody who might hear it from me. You might have it in a different way. Someone else might have said the same thing in a different way. Like, there's a teacher for everybody. So not everybody can learn from the same professor. So I figured if I say it this way or that way, eventually the person who really needs it the most will get it. So we have to keep sharing what we know with each other, because no one person can know everything, but we share with each other.
A great overall message for life, because anybody, speaking from my own experience, listen, there's always going to be that fear and that uncertainty. And I think so often we love to just stay in our comfort zone, right? Because it's peaceful there. We know what to expect, and there's no surprises, right? But we don't grow, we don't develop. But just taking that leap of faith, there's so much to be gained by doing so. One last time, here on the line with Carol Wilson Mack. We started off by discussing her book, Fan Loyalty, and then we went into her recently published book, Patchwork: Conversations Between Generations, both of which available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, but also directly through her personal websites, cwmacbooks.com, as well as carolwilsonaccomplished.com. Carol, as I've stated, this has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for being a guest with us today on People of Distinction.
My pleasure. Thank you.